Before we get started, be sure to watch the first video in this series titled Dairy Judging Part 1, The Basics, before you watch this one. Also, here is some basic dairy terminology, the Dairy Unified Scorecard, and the anatomy of a dairy cow for you to refer back to throughout this video and in your judging experiences. Have you ever noticed at livestock shows that at the end of each class, the judge gives a small speech explaining why they placed the animals the way they did? Have you wondered how they're able to make those mental notes and present that speech so quickly for dozens of classes each day? Have you noticed that each judge usually has the same format for each of those speeches? Well, actually, those speeches are called reasons, and today we're going to practice judging some dairy cow classes and also learn how to set up our notes and present oral reasons just like those judges. When judging any livestock animal contest, there are always 4 animals to compare that are of the same breed and age group. The goal is to utilize the knowledge and skills you have to determine the order of those animals from best to worst regarding their quality of the animal based on the physical traits. Most of the time, you'll be given 12 minutes to place a non-reasons class, meaning you only have to determine the placing order and turn in a ticket with your placing score. And you'll only have 15 minutes for a reasons class. This means that you'll have to determine the placings, but also give a memorized oral explanation on why you placed animals the way you did. During those 15 minutes, you'll have a notebook that you can take notes in, and then you'll be given a time period after the class is done to organize your thoughts and develop your oral reasons, and then you'll have a time where you'll present them to a judge. This may seem overwhelming, and 15 minutes doesn't seem like a long time, but in this video, we'll go through how to quickly and accurately place a class of dairy cattle, while also taking the time to teach you how to effectively organize your notes to develop and memorize your reasons. Today, we're going to mostly go over dairy judging and reason sets relating to dairy animals. However, the format of these notes and reasons are universal to all species, so if you judge any other type of livestock, you just have to switch out the terminology, but can use the same format and ideology. First, let's go over some tips for placing dairy animals. First, look for an obvious top or bottom cow, meaning look for an easy winner or loser that embodies either the best or worst combination of those physical traits. After you eliminate the top and or bottom from your consideration, you can focus on placing the other animals. This is basically the process of elimination. Also, look for pairs. Ask yourself, are there 2 animals that are obviously the best 2 or the worst 2? That way, you can determine a top or bottom pair, which can be easily swapped out for placings, which in turn leads to less point deductions if your placings don't match the official ones. Deciding on pairs also offers a chance in your reasons to explain why you placed one over the other, even if they were close. This also can save you more points because the judge will know what you were thinking and they recognize how close you were, so that will lead to less point deductions. With those pairs, if you're having trouble deciding which of the 2 should be on the top of the pair and which on the bottom, you can always refer back to the unified scorecard in the previous video. For instance, if you have 2 that are very close, you can ask the question, which cow has the best udder? Which cow has a better set of feet and legs? Based off the answers to those questions, you can weigh the percentages. If cow 1 has the better udder and better feet and legs, they'll win 60% of the scorecard, whereas 2 will only have 40%. Thus, you'd place 1 over 2. If you ever confuse or get stressed in the middle of a class, take a minute, breathe, clear your head, and start over. Sometimes you need a fresh perspective and a clear mind to reevaluate. A lot of the times, this allows you to see things you didn't notice originally, thus making this decision easier. Lastly, never change your mind last minute. Like every multiple choice exam in school, never change your answer last minute because most of the time your first answer was right and you quickly change your mind without a lot of thought. Also, follow your first instinct. Trust that initial judgment and you can always change your mind, but make sure you're positive what you want to do and you weigh the decision before you mark the change. Also, if you're in a reasons class and hand in your card, regardless of what your thoughts are after you turn in your card, you have to support the placings you wrote down. You will be deducted points if the placings you back up in your reasons don't match the placings you wrote down in your scorecard that you turned in earlier. The format of your notes are very important. In a reasons class or any judging class, here's a good rule of thumb on how to set up your notes to make it easier to compare animals. You divide your paper into a table with 2 columns and 4 rows. At the top of the page, you'll include the class, breed, and age, and your placings. You can also include your introductory sentence up here for your reasons. Get in the habit of taking down notes, such as physical traits that help you remember which cow is which. For instance, you could say, 1 was the all-black Holstein with a white switch or tail. 2 was a small Jersey with the darkest tan coat color. 4 was a Holstein with a heart-shaped spot on her side. 3 was the Holstein with the huge udder that hung very low below her hocks. Taking note of any obvious physical trait that helps you remember which cow is which helps you remember the cows as you present your reasons. When looking at the columns, the first column is set up so you can write down those specific observations or characteristics about each of those animals in their own section. Column 2 is set up so that you can compare the pairs once you decide on them. And finally, in the bottom right column is where you recognize why you placed that animal last. Also, you'll include a closing statement. The best way to close is to sum it all up and remind the judging of your placings. For instance, you can just say, "For these reasons, I placed this class 1, 2, 3, 4 today. Thank you." Some tips for oral reasons. Always speak in the present tense. For instance, you can use the sentence, 2 has a stronger forwarder attachment than 1. Also, when referring to an animal, use their number, for instance 3, instead of saying cow number 3. Another one is that less is more. Refine your reasons so that they only have the necessary information that still proves to the judge you know what you're talking about, but is concise where it's not unnecessarily long. It also makes it easier to remember when you present them. Always use a grant system. When you explain why you placed one animal over the other, you may use a few examples of why 3 was better than 2. But before you move on to the next pair, it's vital to grant or recognize a way 2 is better than 3. This allows the judge to see that you confidently placed 3 over 2, but still recognized a way 2 could have been placed over 3. This will lead to less point deductions if you actually switch the pair compared to the official placings. Also, touch upon all areas of the cow. Don't use the same 3 traits to describe the reasons for each pair. Mix it up and show the judge that you have a wide knowledge of dairy judging characteristics and that you observe more than just their udders all compared, and that you noted width of chest, pastern strength, depth of ribs, rump angle and width, and other describing factors. When taking notes in the short time period you have to observe these classes, it's important to be concise and quick. Here are some common abbreviations that you can use to allow you to take notes quicker while still being able to understand your notes after the class as you prepare to present your reasons. The following proper format of reasons can be applicable to almost any species. First off, you start with an introduction. For instance, I placed this class of Holstein age cows 1, 2, 3, 4. In that intro, it's vital to mention the breed, the age, and your placing. For the next part, you include an intro for the first pair. For instance, in my top placing, 1 places over 2 because, and then you insert 3 to 4 main reasons why you placed that way. Then you provide a grant for the first pair. For instance, I will admit that 2 had an advantage in blank. Then you transition to the next pair. For instance, next in my middle pair, 2 places over 3 because, insert your reasons. And then you repeat this until you get to the bottom pair. And after the final grant, you include the reasons why you placed the cow, for instance 4, last, and you include what she lacks to earn a higher placing. Finally, you close it all with a closing sentence. For these reasons, I placed this class of Holstein age cows 1, 2, 3, 4. This allows you to sum it up and remind the judge of how you placed this class while also including the breed and age again. Let's hear some reasons given by a judge at a local fair.
Another tremendous class here in our fall cat class, and for me, a pretty logical winner. After that really well as you were straight into line, so much back, it's around the ring, she's so square and rough structure, and so much femininity up through her head, and that taking nothing away from this October calf here in second, and October calf, like I do love her with all the way through a beautiful, beautiful leg after I get really managed, maybe just a little more the slant to rib, I like to see a little more balance around the ring, but 2 beautiful efforts here for a close place in second and third. Third place, a real long frame after another heavy straight in her lines after I gave the advantage today, just a little tighter about her shoulder, a little stronger up to her props and shine, and another October gap here in fourth. Fourth place gap, a little fifth place gap. Just for me, a little more natural femininity, a little derriere, a little finger bowl all the way through, a little more extension up through her head and neck, a little cleaner up through her head and neck, a beautiful class all the way down the line.
Now that we know the gist of note-taking and how to set up our reasons, let's start with a practice class that we will also take notes for as if we're presenting oral reasons. Feel free to pause the video to get a closer look at each animal for each view provided. Refer back to the dairy judging scorecard material we covered and put it in order from first to fourth place how you judge these cows. Remember, with the 4 sections of the scorecard, the percentages that go along with each trait refer to how important each of them are. Seeing that udder is 40%, usually a good rule of thumb is to look at the udders first, and then compare the rest of the scorecard sections, such as feet and legs, frame, and dairy strength, to refine your order of first to last. Also, make sure to have a pen and paper because you're going to practice taking notes on this class and organizing your reasons. This class is going to be a Holstein aged cow class. Aged cows is a term that refers to cows over 5 years old. Some other classes you may experience will be called Jersey 2-year-olds, Holstein yearlings, which is a heifer class, or many others. Be sure to pause the video at each point and don't be afraid to rewind to review each animal carefully. You can time yourself if you'd like to simulate an actual judging competition, but if you're a beginner, take all the time you need. After you're done, we're going to go over the judge's official notes and reasons so you can see how you did. According to the official judge who judged this class, they placed this class of Holstein aged cows 4, 3, 2, 1, 4 being the best and 1 being the worst. Here are the notes this judge used to format their reasons. Here is a transcript of the official reasons. I place this class of aged Holstein cows 4, 3, 2, 1. I place the white cow over 3 on her advantage in style and balance as she blends more correctly from neck to shoulder and shoulder to barrel. 4 is also fuller in her crops and tighter at the point of elbow. Still further, she has more width of chest. 4 also has a more correct set to her hock, noting that 3 has too much set. Moreover, 4 also has a leveler udder floor, noticing that 3 has too much reverse tilt. I would grant that 3 is higher and wider in her rear udder. In my middle pair, 3 places over 2 on her advantage in frame. She is taller, longer cow from end to end that has more depth, spring, and sweep of both fore and rear rib. 3 also tracks straighter on her front feet and legs. To tip the scales even further, 3 is longer in her fore udder, higher in her rear udder, and shows more balance in her rear quarters, noting that 2 is light in her right rear quarter. I do admit 2 is leveler on her udder floor. In my final pair, in a closer placing, I place 2 over 1 as she has more dairiness throughout. She is longer and leaner in her neck, cleaner through her hooks and pins, and more incurving in her thigh. 2 is also cleaner in the molding of her hock. I also prefer the teat placement of 2. However, the black cow is more youthful in her udder. I do admire the shallow udder of 1, but I feel she lacks the length of fore udder, correctness of teat placement, and dairiness and angularity of other cows in the class today. For these reasons, I place this class of aged Holstein cows 4, 3, 2, 1. Now that we know the official reasons, look back on your notes and reasons and see how you can make yours stronger and see what you missed. Even if you didn't place them correctly, it's alright. It takes a while to perfect your ability to judge dairy animals, and the more practice you do, the better you'll be. Here are some other species and some quick info on how judging and reasons are similar to dairy. Whenever judging any livestock, whether they be dairy cattle, swine, sheep, beef, etc., the way you record your notes and format your reasons are very similar, almost universal. You just have to swap out some of the terminology and refer back to the different characteristics that are ideal in each species. Congratulations! You just completed your first judging class, took detailed notes on the animals, and gave a great set of reasons. Feel free to refer back to this video in the future if you need any reminders or tips and tricks on dairy judging and oral reasons. You can also check out the Holstein Foundation Dairy Judging PDF for more information on judging. Thanks for watching and keep practicing so that you can work towards being a more confident dairy judge and an oral reasons presenter.